You referred to the inflation risk. The White House would also like this Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. You've been in the room a few times, I'm sure, talking about this Federal Reserve. How did the president end up with a Fed chair that he dislikes so much? How did that happen?
Well, I've been watching a lot of what the president's had to say about Jay Powell lately, and he did appoint him, so it's part of the awkward aspect here. Well, first, I think the President of the United States is fully entitled to express his opinion about both the Fed chair and about the Federal Reserve itself. I have long had great concerns about the dual mandate in the Federal Reserve. I think it confuses the issue. I mean, the Federal Reserve has this, for your viewers, has a dual mandate to protect the integrity of the dollar and achieve full employment. I think the Federal Reserve ought to just focus on the dollar. And I think that the hesitation that I have seen from the Fed chair and ostensibly the committee is that the uncertainty around these broad-based tariffs and the potential for inflation has slowed their intention and their earlier efforts at lowering rates. And so how the president got to where he considers the Federal Reserve chairman to be worthy of the nickname "too late," I can't really testify. But to me, pushing back on the idea that what seems to be holding up the Federal Reserve, although I read this morning that there's now more vigorous debate, I'm sure you've covered here on Bloomberg, on the committee, is that we may have a lowering of interest rates, which we certainly would welcome.
As you know, the president, one of his greatest strengths is to break the status quo and have very little respect for it. Are there limits to that? And is Fed independence an example of it?
Well, that's right. And I think, look, the president appoints the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And a careful study of American history shows I don't really accept that the Federal Reserve should be a completely separate agency, like a college of cardinals that we never refer to other than in respectful hush tones, John. I think the president ought to be able to express himself. Elected officials ought to be able to express themselves, because it's almost like that old saying about the Supreme Court, that justices do read the newspaper. And I expect that's also true of members of the Federal Reserve.